I'd like to start off with telling you about the very first solar-powered radios. Most people are real surprised to learn that solar-powered radios were actually on the market 61 years ago. In 1956, Admiral out of Chicago came out with this radio, and it's a nice 6-transistor radio. It used 6 D-cell batteries to power it, and according to the little advertisement on the front of the radio in stores, it would play 700 hours on the batteries, about an hour a day for 2 years. Or, if you wanted to spend the money, now the radio was $59.95. A pretty good penny then. In 1956, I was 14 years old. I didn't even know anybody that could afford one of these radios. But that was about what a really good transistor radio would cost at that time. Now, if you wanted to spend the money, they offered this option. World's first sun-powered tubeless portable radio for only $175 more. The equivalent of about $2,000 today. You could buy the custom leather carrying case, which had a little pouch in the back, a little pocket that would hold a little solar pack, and then you could just point that at the sun or at a 100-watt light bulb in the stores, and then you could power your radio forever for free. At that price, they didn't sell very many of these. This is the little sun power pack. This is the one side of it, and this is the other side with 32 little silicon cells in it. This would put out 9 volts, and it would power the radio just fine. The radios are, I wouldn't say scarce, they're not real common, but they show up on a regular basis. There's one on eBay right now. A month from now, there'll be another one. So, you know, half a dozen of them will show up every year on eBay. The Sun Power Pack is extremely rare. I've been collecting these now I got my first one in 1999. I know of 5 of these in existence. One of them I know is in France. 4 of them are here. This is the first time, when I get done here tonight, I'll probably rearrange these radios just a little bit, and I'm going to put one of these sun packs in front of each of the 4 different colors of radio that Admiral offered, and it'll be the first time that that's ever been displayed anywhere, because they just don't exist. The little sun pack in the stores, the display that the store would have a 100-watt light bulb that you could turn on, and then the radio plays. It actually, when you plug the sun pack in, it would disconnect the batteries and connect the sun pack up. So this radio doesn't have any batteries in it. So I don't have to disconnect. It's actually on all the time, but until I put the sun pack up there, it's not going to make any sound. It's a nice AM radio. Set this back. There's an article up here that appeared. I don't know what magazine I got this out of, but there's a nice article about this radio. It tells a lot of the technical details too, and all about it. This came out in 1956, and there's several copies up there. If you'd like a copy when I'm done, just help yourself. There's also some little wanted flyers up here. Take 2, they're small. And my business card if you'd like to ever get in contact with me. This is the box that came in. It's not a very fancy box, but it's the shipping box. The leather carrying case it came with is, I have 2, and that's the only 2 I know And this one, I believe, is an earlier version. They look the same on the front, but on the back they're a little different. Here's the sun pack in this one, but you can't get to the battery. I mean, to the plug-in right up here to plug it in. They forgot to put a little hole here. So you have to actually take the radio out to plug that in. The later version I have, I assume it's the later version, you can actually, there's a little hole where you can plug it in. So a little afterthought I guess they had. I don't know how many of these sun packs they made. I was told once, 20 years ago, that someone had information that they made 300 of them. And they were probably all sent out to Admiral dealers all over the country. I've seen ads in old newspapers, and all the ads, they say, come on to the store and see this thing. I think that this radio, where this tag came from, and that radio over there with the other, that's the other side of the tag, they might have came from dealers. Because I don't think anybody, when they bought the radio, would have gotten this. This was probably just part of the store display. And I've got various information up here, copies of Admiral ads at the time, and some other information. You're welcome to read any of this, photograph it or whatever. Okay, that was in 1956. The next solar-powered radio that hit the market was from the Hoffman Corporation in Los Angeles. And that was this model right here. This was a little bit different in that the solar cell was, the solar panels was built right on top of the radio. They're in the handle. The handle itself, here's a handle without the radio. This is positive and that's negative, or maybe the other way around. It connects right through the knob there, and no wiring, just that's the wire. And so if you put this in under the sun, or point it at the sun and put a voltmeter across there, you'll see how it works. But this radio didn't actually work directly off the sunlight like the Admiral did. This one had what was new at the time, or very new at the time, was it used rechargeable AA size batteries, and they were quite expensive. Regular small batteries then were more expensive than the larger D cells. The D cells, like in 1956, 6 D cells cost you 90 cents, 15 cents a piece. Now the little AA batteries that were in here, the radio cost $150, $9 for 4 rechargeable cells. So that was now it's a lot cheaper, you know. Now this radio came in 5 colors, as opposed to the Admiral, which had 4 colors: the red, salmon, yellow, and the green or turquoise. This radio came in 5 colors: the red, the beige, the black, the turquoise, and a pink. There's no pink here. I don't have it. There's something funny about these radios and collectors that get these. When they get one of these, it goes into a black hole, and no one ever wants to sell it. So they're just tough to come up with. I've got operating instructions here. Hoffman made this. They also made a version without the solar panel. It sold for $90 instead of $159. And it's interesting that this is the instructions for the non-solar set, which is right here. Now it used 4 C-size batteries instead of the little penlight size. But on the front it looks exactly the same, except it doesn't have the solar-powered handle. This was the instructions for that, and the instructions for the solar radio were, they included this, plus this one-sided thing that told you how to take care of the solar panel. That's it. No other instructions. These radios are not as rare as the Admiral Sun Pack, but they're extremely scarce. I don't know. How many people in here own one of these? One of these? Yeah. that tells you how rare they are. There's a lot of radio collectors in here. This radio was pictured in Popular Science right there, with a little black model just like this. This is in August of '57. Shortly after this, I think in September of '57, another company made a solar-powered radio. Now this company is still in business. They're in New Jersey, Phillipsburg, New Jersey. And they claim, even today on their website, that they made the first solar-powered radio. Acopian is this company. This was their first solar-powered radio, which was a year and a half after Admiral made a real solar-powered radio. This was a little toy. It's a one-transistor amplified crystal set. They sold it as a made-up radio or as a kit. This one was constructed from a kit, and I bought it from the daughter of the fellow that put it together. And I've got a little story here about Acopian and debunking their claim because they're wrong. I have actually sent them an email and explained to them that they did not make the first solar-powered radio, but it's still on their website, so they didn't believe me. About that same time, there was another company working on solar powering a radio. And it's pretty much lost to history, but everybody here knows what this is. This is the Regency TR1 that came out in 1954. And it's not a solar-powered radio. But Regency did think about making a solar-powered radio. Up here is laying a photocopy of a solar panel about the same size as the radio that Texas Instruments was designing somewhere, I'd say, in early 1955 to late 1956. And it actually put out 22.5 volts of solar power, but they didn't develop it any further. Two of these experimental solar units existed in Texas Instruments archives a few years ago, and now they're somewhere buried in some library in, I think, SMU in Dallas, Texas. They still exist. I've never seen them. I just have, I think about 20 years ago, I was in contact with the fellow that was in charge of the Texas Instruments archives of Regency radios, and he sent me the photocopy of that article. He sent me a photocopy of Regency transistor radio serial number 1001, the very first one. There was one, yeah. And, so that radio is somewhere buried away. Okay, so that was in late 1957. From there we go on to the next solar-powered radio would have been in 1958. And again, we're back to Hoffman. Now, Hoffman came out with this little 706 series that had the solar panels in the top and handled like that. Much less expensive radio. I think these originally sold for about $89. Over a period of a couple of years, they reduced the price quite a bit. These are great little radios. They use a little 4.5 volt battery for the solar panel. And these seem to be showing up like on eBay, one or two every month. And they're selling anywhere from maybe $100 to a couple $100, depending on what the condition of them are. It came in turquoise, I got a brown and cocoa, black, a pink, white, red, and a dark chocolate. And also, once in a while, you'll see one of these advertised as green. This is the one that you see advertised as green. They did not make a green one. There it is, right next to the turquoise. This is the discolored turquoise. They did not make a green one. So you can see the difference there. So those they made for a few years, and they sold a ton of these. They sold a lot of these. I think the next solar-powered radio that was introduced was made in Australia. And I'm going back down to the other end of the table here. This one I just learned about maybe a year or two ago. This was made by Stromberg Carlson. They call it the Wayfarer. And it's a 6-transistor portable radio with, on the dial on the side, there's a switch that you go from C to P to S. S is for solar, and there's the solar cells in the top, which were made by Hoffman. And then P is for portable radio, and C is for car. On this radio, you could buy an optional cradle that would mount under your dashboard of the car, and then you'd slide the radio in and lock it in with, you had to use a key to unlock it. When you slid it in like this, the dial that you would normally see right here would be hidden in the back. So they had a second dial up here that you could see in the car. And the numbers are big enough to read. And let's see, it goes from 55 kilocycles to 1.6, the opposite direction. They didn't go from the right to the left, so I don't know. Maybe they thought they were Chinese. Anyway, this radio, I understand, is quite rare in Australia. The collector that I got this from said he knew of 4 there, 4 in existence. As far as I know, this is the only one in the United States. And this collector that I met was kind enough to sell me this one. So it's missing a little battery door, big deal. So, when this was plugged into the car, it used the batteries that were included inside the D cells, but it connected up to the car antenna. And when you bought the cradle, you got an antenna kit with it too. So this is probably the most interesting of the solar radios because of the multiple ways it was made to work. So that was in 1960. There's an article here in Radio, Television and Hobbies, December 1960. And that's about the time this was introduced. And for you guys that like all the technical stuff, there's a couple copies of this here, and it does give you all the technical details. About early 1962, a company called International Rectifier out of El Segundo, California, started putting out some various kits, experimental kits and toys, you know. But 2 of them that they put out were solar-powered radios. They had a 1-transistor model that used an earphone. This is a unassembled kit here, and then they had a 2-transistor model that had a little earphone, a little speaker in it. And this is an unassembled kit for that. There's a little problem with the one here, the cabinet, it looked like it got exposed to some direct sunlight and got a little melted, but everything up here is not necessarily perfect, but they still fill the holes. Along about that same time, a couple people were putting out little solar cells that could be used with any of your little regular 9-volt batteries. This one was put out by Hoffman. It's got your little thing. So apparently this would put out 9 volts. And here's the instructions for it in the box. It's even got a model number, HSB9. And this one is from, this is from International Rectifier, and it's basically the same thing. It's got 2 of these kind of clips to hook up, and you get 9 volts. So this was so that you could use any of your little Japanese 9-volt radios. So there's a couple of cute little things there. And so that brings us up to probably the end of my collection of the early solar-powered radios is 1965, 1966, when Zenith decided to get into it. Now Zenith made the Royal 500 series, up until that period. And the very last Royal 500 they made was this, some referred to it as sort of a piece of junk Royal 500. This was their 500N. And basically the same radio was fitted with a little solar panel on top, folds down. And this radio was designed so that you could charge the batteries or run it from the solar panel, or you could charge it with an optional 110 volt plug-in here. And it came in, they called this a Royal 555. They also had a Royal 556, which looks exactly the same. I don't know what the difference is between the two models, but other than the number. Some of them I noticed have the dial running from 54 to 160, and some of them start at 55. Again, I had no idea why they're being different. They were being made about the same time. There's one of those up there in the box with the little instructions and all that kind of stuff. And then just for good measure, I threw in the end of the collection here a few of the modern solar-powered radios that you can buy now online. These sell for anywhere from $6.99 or something to $49. There's a whole bunch of them on eBay. Most of them run AM, FM, and some of them have a flashlight in one end, LED flashlights. They have a little crank you can put out here, crank up to power up the radios. Everybody should own one of these in case of emergencies. Yeah, because you've got all kinds of way to power it. And even though these don't fit in my collection, I bought a few of them and I may get a few more just because they're part of the solar technology. As far as I know, there was almost nothing being made in solar-powered radios from 1965 until just in the last couple of years. I don't know of anything. Now there may be a couple other little kit radios around that I haven't discovered yet. When I do discover them, I'll have to get them. And okay, I have one more radio to show. I want to tell you guys, and the rest of it, all these radios came to me the hard way. I had to pay for every one of them. I mean, pay. I had to talk other collectors into selling them or buy them online on eBay or something. And these radios that are scarce, they just cost. But I got one radio that I got at a good price. And it just happens to be probably the rarest radio of the whole damn bunch. And I want to tell you the story because how important it is to not give up the search. You know, the fun, the hunt and the kill is, you know, everyone here, you know, knows that excitement, you know. Well, in February, I went to the post office to pick up a box that I knew was there. It happened to be the radio from Australia that I was excited that I knew that was coming in that day, and I was excited to be getting a radio for my collection that hadn't existed in my collection before. And on the way home, I just set it on, I looked at the box, it looked fine, I just set it on the car seat, and then I started to drive home. I saw a sign that said, sale, Friday only. And a few minutes, so I drove up, and I got out, and I looked at the stuff they had in the garage there. They had a guitar, we talked about it a little bit. I made an offer, and she didn't sell it to me. And a couple little things, and so I noticed that they had some older things, and so I mentioned that I was an antique dealer. And I gave me my card. By the way, help yourself to a card. It says here I'm the estate and yard sale archaeologist. And that's what I am. The estate and yard sale archaeologist. I'm a recycler of antiquated paraphernalia. This is antiquated paraphernalia, but I'm not recycling this. I asked her if I could give her my card, and she said sure. She took a look at it. She looked at it for a minute, and she says, "Oh, radios, transistor radios. Oh, I have one of those." She said. I says, "Oh, what do you have?" She says, "Well, it's a Sony." Sony radios. A lot of the Sony transistor radios are real desirable. So I said, oh, I'd like to see it. Could I see it? She says, yeah, I'll get it for you, but it's solar powered. And I says, solar powered? Well, Sony didn't make any solar powered radios. She said, oh, it's a Sony. And I said, well, they were only made by, and I named the companies. There's only 4 of them. She said, I'll go get it. She goes to the house, and on the way, as she's coming back towards the garage door, I hear her say, oh, it is a Hoffman. Well, for just a short time, it had slipped my mind that when Hoffman made these radios, the cabinets came from Sony. Hoffman bought the cabinets from Sony Corporation, and on the back of every one of these solar radios and the non-solar radio, there's a little kickstand that says Sony. And it was pretty much copied, the cabinet was pretty much copied after a model that Sony had made the year before, their Model TR6, which only was made in green. I don't know what Sony was planning to do. Probably they were planning to make the Sony TR6 in other colors, but they never did. So Hoffman bought all these cabinets from Sony, and they fitted their own solar-powered radio into it, or non-solar, either way. So that fact had skipped my mind for just a moment until the lady showed up at the garage door. Now this is a box for the solar-powered radio. Now the radio that's in here was not in this box. The radio that's in here is the one that this lady showed me. So there she stands, about 15 foot away, with the holy grail of solar-powered radios. A non-existent radio. Never heard of it. No one's ever heard of it. It's a Hoffman home and travel, solar-powered radio, and a clear cabinet. She said, I just said, wow. I said, I'd love to buy that. She says, well, I think it's got a broken wire. Do you think it would be worth $20? I said, yeah. I says, I collect those. And I whipped out my cell phone. I showed her a picture of my collection on display. And I said, you know, it's worth a lot more than that. I'd give you $100 for it. Oh, great, she said. I rushed to the bank and got the $100. Actually, I got several hundred because I thought she might want more by the time I got back. And she sold it to me. And then I said, do you know where this radio came from? She says, oh yeah. She says, in 1977, I went to a yard sale in Minneapolis. And I knew a collector of radios up in northern Minnesota, and I saw this radio and I thought he'd like it, so I bought it for him. But then before I could give it to him, I found out he had died, so I just kept it. She kept it for me for 40 years. And I said, wow, Mom, we talked a little bit more. I said, so how much did you pay for it? She bought it for $1. $1. And it's not really an attractive radio. This is an attractive radio, but it's rare. It's very rare. Has anyone ever heard of one of these? I'm assuming that it was, you know, Hoffman didn't have a big dealer distributorship like Philco and RCA and all those guys. So they had to find hardware stores and jewelry shops and stuff to sell their products, that sell their radios. So this is probably a salesman's display sample to show the retailer what the radio looked like inside. There it is. Identical to the regular radio. It's Sony thing on the back. Same handle. Red knob that would probably go on a red radio. So there it is. And I did show this at an Arizona Radio Club meeting, the last meeting we had, right, Larry? Yeah. And other than that, you guys are the only ones that have ever seen it. Okay, I think that's a pretty well explanation of everything I've got up here. Oh, no, I got one more radio to mention. I have a Hoffman solar radio up here that is a, you know, they call this the Trans-Solar. That's what they call this model, Trans-Solar. That's what it says on the knob. But here's a Trans-Solar Hoffman that has a piece of plastic in the top of it. Obviously, made to fit right in there perfectly. Has no solar cells. It's another puzzle. I don't know what the deal is with this. It fits in the collection because it says Trans-Solar, even though it's not solar. It's identical. It's got the switch on the back to switch it from battery to solar, but there's no solar. And that's just an interesting curiosity. And as I learned from one person in the club here, is talk today, this interesting curiosity stuff is pretty interesting, pretty good. Okay, so I think that's the end of what I had to say.